Good evening, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of the show is to bring in an artist each episode and to have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all the viewers to comment and ask questions to the artist. Don't be shy, even if it's a hello, we would totally appreciate you commenting. The idea of doing this show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live performances together right now, I wanted a place where music lovers can easily join and converse with artists to see more of the personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening will be in English, and the live streams during your morning is usually in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese shows too. You can always use the subtitle button somewhere around here after the live stream ends to listen in Japanese and read it in English. This is show number 77. I've been doing it every day since mid-May, and I'm very excited for all the guests that have joined us and for our future guests that are coming up. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since we on this side cannot hear your applause, please do me a huge favor and use the comment screen to type in clap, clap, clap or clapping emojis. And as I said before, please don't be shy and comment and say hello to us. Please welcome our special guest, Deborah Barrett Price. Hi, Deborah.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Where are you quarantining right now?
In the Adirondack Mountains, the southern Adirondacks. So I came about a week ago, and I have one more week of quarantine. They do a 2-week quarantine here. So.
Gotcha. Well, it's a little bit different from your usual Ohio house then.
Yeah, I came, my mom's here. I grew up about an hour from here. My mom's been here by herself. And so we felt it was important to spend some time with her. And normally I would be here with about 150 artists over the next 5 weeks in the Kroger Lake Music Festival. And sadly, as everything else has happened, we had to cancel. Then we're hoping that we might be able to do some socially responsibly distant boat concerts.
So that would be wonderful.
Yeah, try that, a dock concert or something to that.
I'm assuming you're right by the water then?
Right, the water's right there. Right?
Yes.
It's like right there. My boat is right there.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, for our viewers, I want to share just a little bit about how Deborah and I met. We've been friends for
10 years.
A little over 10 years now, I think. Yeah, and then the reason that we met was From the Top.
Yeah.
The From the Top, I had been on the show in 2004, and From the Top was doing a 10th year anniversary, I think sometime in 2010. Yeah, 10. It must have been 10. Yeah, it must have been 10. And I came. There were 10 alum that were invited to come back on the show, and I was one of the 10. And on that show was with you.
Yeah, the octet. We had. Now I don't know. Kyle's not in that picture. Somehow you just have the beautiful young ladies of the Chamber Music Connection.
That is true.
Chris and Tom used to joke that it was 7 chicks and a dude. So you must have taken Kyle's spot as the dude.
Yes, wonderful memories of that time. And then our friendship from there really grew, and we had opportunities to see each other in various places around the world. And this is at Tanglewood.
Yeah,
also another photo at Tanglewood.
That was on our way. I think you stopped in my hometown on the way to Tanglewood, and then we met up.
Yes.
Kroger. We went to Tanglewood to see you conduct. It was amazing opera and incredible.
Yeah. Good times for sure. Well, I always start our show with a little bit of music, and so the first music that we have a lot of music today, so which is exciting. The first music I want to start off with is the Mendelssohn Sextet. Tell us a little bit about the music that we're about to watch.
So this was the final concert, and I'm with my son Kyle, who was the dude on the octet. and he is the artistic director of the Kroger Lake Music Festival. So this piece is actually written for violin, 2 violas, cello, bass, and piano, which I think is extremely unusual. Actually, I don't know of any other piece that's written for that combination. And I'm with some fantastic players. Kevin Smith is with the Baltimore Symphony, Aaron Mossberg, phenomenal violist, and Mei Shun Huang. She is a piano professor at Iowa State, and then Jordan Clisto, a wonderful bassist out of Yale, and it just was a blast. So
excellent. And before we start the music, we have some hellos from Karoga Arts Collective. And also Stephanie Price Huang.
Oh, there's my daughter.
There you go. All right. Yeah. Bravo.
So fun.
Bravi.
That was actually in Ghent, New York. It's about an hour and a half from here outside of Albany. And we always finish up our concerts, our series from the lakes, and then it was just right by the Berkshires too.
I see.
Beautiful area.
It's such a unique instrumentation because you're so used to hearing 2 violins, but it's a lot of bottoms.
I know, I love it though. It's so fun. And I just think that it gives it a more of, a chocolatey kind of sound with the violas. The inner voice is so strong, and it's such a fun piece. I've had an opportunity to perform it a few times.
Most definitely. So a little bit about you. I want us to hear how you were introduced to music, and then what was the turning point in choosing music as a career, and just kind of your journey so far until now. So let's start with how you were introduced to music.
Well, my father majored in music and French, and spoke like 5 languages, and ended up becoming an Episcopal priest. And so he always had music around us. We also there was a lot of bridge playing too, as in the card game bridge.
I see. Yeah.
My brother is a professional bridge player, tours the world.
Oh, no kidding.
And then my sister and I ended up being professional musicians. So I say, be very careful what you do with your children, because you never know. Just end up making those their careers now.
Yeah.
It's been great. I thought I was going to go into dance. I started ballet and violin at 8 years old. And the ballet I did, by the time I was 15, I was dancing 6 days a week. I was in a regional ballet company, and which was part of the studio that I studied at. And we would perform in the Berkshire area, like the Tri-City area around Albany, Roy, and the surrounding states. And when I went to college, I thought for sure I was going to I auditioned as a dancer. I got accepted into the Akron Ballet as an apprentice. But my sister was having so much fun on the cello. And I also was very influenced by the Alsops, which are Marin's parents. Marin Alsop, the conductor, her parents, her father, were very influential to me too. And I just thought that musicians had so much fun. And dancing, I had bloody toes and some tough times. My body changed so dramatically. I still danced all the way through college and grad school. I taught ballet as well, and choreographed, soloed. I did all sorts of things with dance, and certainly I incorporate it into my teaching now and into how I perform. But I just, I don't know, I guess I saw the light and went. Yeah, there's a picture of my sister who, sadly we lost. She died of breast cancer in 2013, but she would have been 59 tomorrow. So
No.
I think of her very much. And next to her is Marin's mom, Ruth Alsop, and then my daughter and my son Kyle, who plays my sister's cello. But my sister's was 1 year older than me, and was very influential in my decision to play music too. My dad had us performing right away when we were young. We were already reading chamber music. As soon as I could hold a violin, I was, he was putting music in front of us, and he played harpsichord and all the recorders and piano. My brother played flute. Connie played cello, so we had, all our, and my mom sang, so, we had a little chamber ensemble right there.
Where did you end up studying?
I went to actually a little conservatory called Baldwin Wallace Conservatory outside of Cleveland, and there I was able to continue to dance and do a lot of things I really enjoyed outside of just there's fireworks going on across the lake.
I was wondering what all that sound was.
I don't know if I can show it to you, but it's literally going
right there.
This is at a private residence, by the way.
I see.
You usually shut them off, so let me know if it's too loud. But
it is picking up on the mic, and I'm hearing all kinds of your voice is getting.
Let me see if I can shut the window. I don't know if I can do anything about it. They usually only last a couple minutes. This is by one of the big donors. Is that any better? I have one more window. Of Kroger Arts, and he does it to celebrate his wife who passed away.
I see. That's beautiful.
So I guess it's all a celebration, but it won't last for very long.
Got it.
Sorry, but it's
it's fine. I'm sure it's beautiful.
It's pretty awesome over there on the water. Yeah. I don't know if my camera. It's sort of behind the trees, so
it's okay. This show is not about the fireworks. It's about you. So stop talking about the fireworks and get back to your story.
Okay.
Focus.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole music world and how I got into music, it was really an influence of my sister, and I didn't really realize. The funny thing about it is I played the viola for about 6 months. I played violin, and I was dancing so much, so I wasn't practicing a whole lot on my violin at all. And I picked up the viola because I said to my sister, I wonder about the viola. It looks, the violas are always struggling in orchestra. I was concertmaster of my little high school orchestra. And she's like, oh, it's not hard. I'll have this friend teach us. So I had this friend he was a mutual friend, a pianist, a phenomenal artist, Todd Sisley. And Todd showed me the viola, and he's like, okay, now he's trying to explain to me how to read the viola clef, alto clef. And I was like, oh, that's what's hard about the viola, because I couldn't read it. And literally couldn't read it until I was a junior in college. I remember vividly when all of a sudden I read that. But I got a full ride to study with Philadelphia Orchestra. I could play pretty much anything, mainly because I think I had really great rhythm. Because you have to internalize the rhythm so much that you really you're embodying it quite literally. And so I could read a lot of things, and I did everything by patterns. I'd pretend I was in third position when I was first when I was in third, and I don't know, somehow. The one thing that was really challenging was like the first piece that was put in front of me was the Firebird Suite. I think the whole first page, I'm not sure I actually played a note that was supposed to be where it was supposed to be. I couldn't read it. I was studying with Philly, but I'm sure I played more than that. But it was an interesting world. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I think I was pretty naive, but it was fun. It was really fun. And I enjoyed it. So next thing I know, I got a full ride to go to college, and I started studying, and then it just went on from there.
What brought you to Ohio?
College did. The college is up near Cleveland, and my sister was going there, so I went to go visit her, and that's how I started thinking, well, maybe I could play the viola. Like, why do I want to do dance? My career will be over. At that time too, Balanchine, he was accepting like 14 and 15-year-olds into the corps ballet, and a lot of my friends were going down to New York City, and they were going to the School of American Ballet and ballet theater, and they're being told they were too old, they were too fat, they were too thin, they were too this. Too that. It was a pretty tough career. I think it's still is, and music just didn't seem to me. It just seemed like I could still do it late in life, and So
A little bit more open and
yeah, and very inviting.
friendly. Yeah.
They were so Lamar's was the concertmaster. Marin's parents were in the ballet orchestra, New York State Ballet Orchestra, and the New York State Ballet was in Saratoga as well with the Philadelphia Orchestra growing up. And so I remember seeing Baryshnikov debut, and it wasn't because of the dancers I was studying with. It was because Ruth and Lamar said, "Hey, Misha's going to be debuting. Go backstage and find out when he's doing it." And so they told me where to go back. I went backstage. I saw where he was listed. He debuted on a 3:00 Saturday matinee, and he performed Coppelia, which was not a really phenomenal male role, but he re-choreographed it. He ended up adding all these jumps and turns, and it was crazy. But it was a obviously I haven't forgotten it. It was a really incredible experience, and that was one of the many welcoming moments that musicians brought me to. Like I got to watch in the Philadelphia Orchestra when I was studying with them. They brought me backstage because they knew I was dancing, and I was studying with Norman Carroll and Joe De Pasquale, and they're like, come backstage and watch the ballet because Peter Martins and Suzanne Farrell, who were lead dancers. Of course, Peter Martins was the artistic director. Not then. He was a prima ballerina, or she was a prima ballerina, and he was one of the core star leads. I don't know what they call them anymore, but anyway, they were dancing in front of the Philadelphia Orchestra in a live performance at SPAC, at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center. And so I got to watch from backstage these two artists, these two dancers, phenomenal dancers, and it was because the musicians were like, "Come backstage, you should see this here." And that just kept reminding me that this music world was something I really was attracted to. So I went just into that music scene, and I think a lot of what I do now has a lot to do with how those musicians treated me and brought me in and encouraged not just me but others. Obviously not just me.
Tell us a little bit about your viola. How did you come about to your instrument?
I have two violas.
Okay.
So one is made by Cliff Alsop, which is
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the odd-shaped one.
Yeah, okay.
It looks like it melted almost. It sort of looks like a viola da braccia, or almost like a bass even. And then I have another viola, which I was playing that summer. I just got back. I had broken it this past fall. And it's about a 1740. It's probably Austrian made. It looks a lot like Mozart's earlier instruments. It's very dark, and it's got a beautiful, rich sound, but it doesn't project huge. And then the Alsop has a real. I wish I could almost melt the two together. The Alsop is a really good concerto instrument. It's got a big, bold sound, but doesn't have that old quality that you get from the 1740 instruments.
It's interesting about the viola though, because the violin usually has a standard shape. The cello has a standard shape, but when it comes to the viola, there are just so many different shapes. Like, what happened there?
Free for all.
like the middle child decided to just go with all kinds of different outfits.
Yeah. Well, this one the Alsop that I play on with the curve, it allows you. It has a huge body. It looks like when I play it. I mean, I think people think it looks like I have a cello in my. But the actual string length is not so bad. It's not the same as my smaller viola. So it gives you. It's just that the thing about the viola is that it's already quirky because it'd have to be twice the size of a violin and half the size of the cello. You'd have to be 7 feet tall to play what would be, I think, deemed the standard size viola. So then it just opens it up for people to play around with it. And you get a lot of different colors and sounds that are very unique. I love playing different violas. And my bows are the things that I'm really attached to, though.
Okay.
A Rishom and a Satori. They're both beautiful bows. And that's your voice. The box, the viola, the instrument is certainly important, but the bow is what makes, how much sound do you make with your left hand? It's
right.
almost nothing, right? So it's all about the bow. And I just, when I play this Richon and the Satori as well, I lend them out all the time. Actually, on From the Top, both of my bows were being played by the violists, by Rachel
I
Barrett.
see.
And then Carolyn Weeks, who was the solo violist on the show, I ended up lending her my Richon because I could tell it wasn't producing, her bow was not producing the sound that I knew she could have. And so she ended up using it. And actually my bow premiered on the show 7 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell us about this photo.
This is surreal. This was, so I was playing opera with a bunch of my alums and my son and my daughter, and I got a notification, David Finkel, and he's like, call me. And I was like, call David. Okay. I wonder what this is all about.
For those who don't know, David Finkel, would you explain?
Oh, yeah. So David's pictured here on the right with his wife, Wuhan. They are the artistic directors of Chamber Music Society Lincoln Center. And of course, he was the cellist with the Emerson String Quartet for 30 years. Both very famous players, performers, chamber musicians extraordinaire, brilliant people. And I'd gotten to meet them several times over the past 10, 15 years because they would come to Chamber Music Columbus and perform at the Southern Theater, and they gave some workshops. Lincoln Center pianists came and did some workshops in collaboration with Chamber Music Columbus. David Finkel and Emerson also, and David did some master classes on his own for us as well. And the Geneva String Quartet, who we'll probably talk about later a little bit, one of my student, the ensembles from CMC came through and got to play on Alice Tully Hall. And that spring we saw each other again, and he was asking me a lot of questions, and I just like, it's not unusual for David to ask me a lot of questions about things. And so when he gave me that call, I thought, oh, he's probably telling me, have I done half the things that he thinks that probably I should be doing, or we should do to continue to develop CMC to being a program that is world renowned. And, and I appreciate their support so much. So at the opera, the guys are my carload of alums and all were like, well, you're going to call him? And I'm like, I'm going to go, I'm going to get a glass of wine, I'm going to sit on my deck, and I'm going to call David.
Right.
And I called him. He's like, what are you doing in October? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in October. I go, well, when can you tell me? And I was like, I got to look at my calendar. And he's like, and I finally was just like, David, what is going on? And he's like, we're going to give you an award. And
that's awesome.
So Chamber Music Connection received the award for extraordinary service in chamber music. And we were the 5th recipient. There's no application. It's a recommendation that comes from the artistic directors to the board. And the other recipients include Mahatma Pressler, the Marlborough Festival, Charles Wadsworth. I mean, just like, I cannot believe that this little program in Central Ohio is recognized by and amongst the names of such extraordinary musicians. It still gives me goosebumps. I just can't believe that that's just, to look at that picture, I have to remind myself I was actually there. This actually happened.
Well, knowing you and knowing the program, it's like, for me, it doesn't surprise me one bit. And this is a great transition into talking about CMC. Tell me what got you started into starting Chamber Music Connection, and how many years has it been since day one?
Oh yeah, so we started in 1992, and I was 9 months pregnant with that dude who played the octave. I didn't realize it at the time when I said yes to this, but so what happened was I had actually started teaching chamber music at a program called Jefferson Academy pretty much right out of grad school, and I met the Cavani String Quartet. We've been dear friends ever since, and Kyle's actually the new cellist in the Cavani. They've been influential to hundreds of my students, and across the country and the world. They're an incredible, influential group of wonderful musicians. And so Eric Eckert, the founding violist, came to me. Well, I started this little program, sort of venturing off and doing some work with teaching younger musicians. That's the thing that has always driven me. I played chamber music at 8, 9 years old, and I just was always driven to do more. Yeah, so here's some of my very young students. Actually, Lizzie, who's sitting first violinist, is a violist now, studying with Eric Eckert at Boulder, and helped me put together all of this. So thanks, Lizzie. She's there with Annika. These guys were probably, I'm thinking maybe 12 years old or so at that point. Maybe they were younger. And but I just felt really strongly that chamber music should be accessible to all. And I was getting a lot of question about that. They're like, oh, you have to hold a carrot like in front of these students, like they have to practice to be able to get to a point where they play chamber music. And I'm like, why? They can play chamber music immediately, and who, if they don't know what chamber music is, how is this dangling it in front of them? How's that going to help?
Right.
And so I first got hired by Stephanie. I first got hired by Jefferson to work with their chamber music and start to develop a young program. They still want to do auditions and things like that, and I'm not a fan of auditions. And so then I started a smaller program out in Bexley, which is a suburb. And Erica came to be my guest artist. And so Erica's like, hey, my mom always wanted to start a program up in Delaware, which is a city just north of Columbus. And she asked me if I could ask you if you might start one. And I was just like, oh, sure. I didn't know what I was getting into. I also didn't know I was pregnant with Kyle. And when I found out, I thought, I'm just going to do it. What am I going to do 9 months pregnant anyway? I'm just going to sit around, or I can start a program. So I had about 20, I think it was like 27 students, and they ranged in age, adult to young. And I did a 2-week, every other day summer program. And the next year we added a weekend festival with the Cavani String Quartet, which would have been our 29th or 28th festival this year, would have been our 29th festival. And about 6 years later, it grew into this chamber music connection. What was happening was students were coming to my house and studying chamber music like they would, private lessons. And a parent came up to me, Jane Cataldi, who was doing her master's in arts administration. And she said, look, I know people want this all year long, and you can do this. And she said, I'll help you. And I said, okay. And that's when we started Chamber Music Connection.
Name is important. How did chamber music, at least you got 2 of the words in the connection part all done. Like, I'm assuming chamber music had to be in the name of your company, but like adding the connection part, how did that come about?
Yeah, I thought it came up because I thought that's exactly what I want to do. I want to connect the community. I want to connect students to great artists, to educators, and to the community, and to the music. And it was funny though, we actually talked about changing the name
to what?
2000s. We weren't sure, but because at that point there were these dating services that were like connections and
oh, of course.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I started getting interesting like letters, and I was just like, maybe we should change the name. And then it was the alums and the current students who were like, no, you can't change the name. And it was funny because every time we started to talk about it as a board, something would come up that would say, oh, well, you connected me, or I was connected by, or it was connecting. And we're like, okay, we can't change the name because this is what we do. We connect people to music. So so it stuck. So here we are. I mean, a lot of people call CMC as, to shorten it, or the connection, or
Well, I was always wondering where that connection came from.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this photo that we see right now.
That was from our 20th anniversary. That was so much fun. A bunch of alums came, and Peter Soloff, who I just adore. He was the founding member of the Cleveland Quartet. We call him the music. Just most wonderful mentor and soul. And next to him, Michael Tree, of the Guarneri, Violas of the Guarneri. What's such an honor to have them be guest artists with us. And to my left is Kathy Jones, flute professor at Ohio State and the president of Chamber Music Columbus, and also a wonderful supporter of chamber music in Central Ohio. And it was just such a treat to be able to work together and present this. This happened to be at Ohio State. We did it that year, and normally we were at St. John's, but we had such a big celebration that I'm Ohio State. I did my master's at Ohio State, 2 masters there, and so we were welcomed back, and then we also performed on the Southern stage of the Southern Theater, which was just such a treat for our 20th anniversary. I can't believe it's already 8 years coming.
Yeah. Well, how many students do you think have gone through the program at this
You
point?
know, we've been trying to figure this out because some students come in at 7 years old and don't leave until they graduate. We have quite a few who've done like every single program from young, very young, all the way through high school, and then even in college, they'll come back and do some work. And now some of them are faculty members. And then there's the students who come in for a program or two, you know, come and go. So we're estimating it's probably around 2,000 at this point, 2,000 students, somewhere in that vicinity. And that's not including the students that we've also worked with through the High School for the Blind and with the Dowd Center and different outreaches and things. This is just the students who've enrolled and taken at least one of our programs.
Mm-hmm. You've done so many concerts and projects and productions, and it's probably hard to ask you what is your favorite. And I wanted to share a few photos that you've shared me to us, featuring some of your highlights or some of the most memorable events. So here is one. Would you share us a little bit about this event?
Okay. So this is actually with the Kuroga Lake Music Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in a boat garage. We were supposed to be out on the water and doing a beach concert, and a rainstorm came in. And I'm over in the far right corner there, enjoying it thoroughly. And it was just an amazing situation. The owners of the marina were so quick. They really wanted to hold this concert. And Brett and his Fielding and his dad, Bill Fielding, came up to me and said, you know, do you think we could do this like in the garage? And they'd already swept it out. They'd already moved the boats out. They'd already like moved engines and made room and brought it. They were bringing in like 100 chairs for people to sit at. And it was amazing. I was like, this is community. And Kyle's there, and Aaron and David Wong, who's my son-in-law, and Rich Saunders, who sings with, he does a lot with Chance the Rapper and was in a group called Third Story at the time. Kara Samantha is in the middle. She was on American Idol, and they're all performing. And we got to jam together. It was just so much fun. And so that is one of the most memorable times for me. And a lot of the Tree Music Connection alums have come and been artists at Kuroga, which is, of course, I would be right now in rehearsal or performance. What is it? So, I'd have a concert right now. We'd probably be at the Boathouse if the pandemic hadn't happened.
Most definitely. For chamber music, especially for the young students just before college and also after college, but it's the competition Fish Off is one of like the biggest highlights if you're into classical music, and you've had wonderful success at Fish Off, including multiple medals and.
Yeah, and Fish Off and then St. Paul String Quartet competition has been phenomenal. It's been so wonderful to work with Ray's shows and the St. Paul String Quartet competition. I think we've been there 12 of 15 years, something crazy like that. And I think we've medaled all but 2 years. And then the Coltman is a new competition in Texas, which actually was the very last one that we were able to do before COVID hit. We traveled, one of our quartets won the second prize there, but there's only 2 prizes actually in the junior division, so they were one of the 2 prize winners.
Nice.
Got back on the plane, got home on Monday, and on Tuesday that was it.
That was it. So from Fish Off, I want to share us a little bit of a little music here of the Geneva Quartet. Yes. And Deborah, tell us a little bit about this experience for them.
Well, the year before, first of all, they named themselves Geneva because we were doing a program in Switzerland, and they all came. And so they decided to name themselves Geneva in honor of that. The year before this, they were alternates, and they kept advancing and got all the way up through receiving an honorable mention, which is not given out every year. And this was the next year. And so often when you go the next year, you don't usually have the same success because it's such an art form. It's a challenge.
Right.
I really wanted them to play this piece by Caroline Shaw, this On Track. I fell in love with this piece when the Calidor first played it. And I thought their personalities fit so well. Lizzie, the violist, too, has helped so much to put all this information together for us. And then Isaiah and Daniel Wu are twins, and then Kelly Gambara. This group had a lot of really great chemistry. They didn't always feel like they did. They had their challenges. There was a time where they thought they weren't sure they wanted to play with each other, and that was one summer. I'm like, you guys, hang in there, just find a way to make it work. And this happened. They got here and they ended up winning the silver medal, the bronze medal. And yeah, this piece, it's such a phenomenal work.
Yes, and Caroline Shaw is an amazing composer. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to. I think we're going to get to work with her again. Actually, I have a call in with her agent soon for Chamber Music Columbus. Is going to have their 75th anniversary, and we're hoping that she might write a piece for us for that. People have to listen to this whole thing. That's an incredible work.
It is.
Sounds and yeah.
I have one question from Dave Lake, who is a radio host in Savannah, asking, how do you work with the young chamber music players to get them to listen to other members of the group as well as playing their part?
Yeah, well, we do a lot of games. I actually am in the process of creating a series of videos and writing a book. There's a wonderful cellist, Janet Horvath, who I met recently, who's a wonderful artist and a writer, and so we're looking to do this together. But so these techniques, I have several videos. Actually, one is the Tango Project, which if you do Chambers Connection Tango Project, you can look that up and Google it, and it'll come up. And it's about a 3-4 minute video about how we work with dance. But in the younger musicians listening, I do this game where it's an improvisation game, and we work together in cueing, and they make a sound of the day, or they create an ostinato, and then they have to share it with each other, so they have conversations. That's one way. Another is that we work with Bach chorales, which were introduced to me by Peter Soloff. And with the Bach chorales, we do a lot of different games with those Bach chorales. We play them in different styles and different characters. We do a Cavani Live, Breathe, and Die, where one member is the leader and everybody lives and breathes and dies for that person, or Mary Peckham likes to call it Elbad. So that's another way. We also do a game that I created with working with ringing tones, where you play only the ringing tones in a piece. And so you have to watch each other. There's just a downbeat game. There's so many games. I have 20 or 30 where work, and I do it with my most advanced students too. It's not just youngest that I do this with. So those are just a lot of the techniques to listen. And we even do it with tuning. I mean, right from the get-go, we're listening to, playing the A's together, then one person play an A and then the D, and listening to the fifth. And yeah, it's not hard, really. They embrace it.
Yeah, it opens. It's about the approach, I think. It's always trying to keep, especially with younger students, because the attention span is not,
And some of the older students.
That's true. That too. And some adults too. But especially with the super young kids, they have so much going on in their mind. And to be able to focus on one thing or on a music, games are always good. And I think
here's the thing that sorry to interrupt. What I was thinking was that it's probably one of the very few times that you don't see a kid on their phone.
When they're playing music. Yeah, that's true.
At this point in time, I mean, they're so engaged with their instrument and their music, and it's the phones might be around if they get, and actually I shouldn't say it, because now with what we're doing online, you have to have your phone, but their hands are busy, their minds are busy, and the music and that conversation, that part, they're having a conversation with their peers in ways that I think there's just no other way it happens. Orchestra's great. I love orchestra. I'm principal of two different, of an opera and a chamber orchestra. But you are, in a different world with, working with, trying to do, well, as as a conductor, you're giving us inspiration, and we're working with that inspiration, but we're fitting into that kind of teamwork of doing what we're being called to by the conductor and by the composer. In chair music, we're our own conductor, and we each have the 4 or 5 or 6 of us, or however many they're in there. we each have to be a conductor and an inspirer, and we have to be a leader. We always talk about it. To be the best leader, you have to be the best follower. To be the best follower, the best leader. And the other thing about chair music, for me, is that I feel that it's the most selfless thing to do as musicians. It's selfish because it's so much fun and you really want to do it and you like
Yeah.
but it's selfless because it can never be about yourself. It has to be about what everybody else needs.
Right.
So it's a really wonderful medium.
Well, and then selfless because you're always splitting it either with 4 people or 2 people or 3 or 6, or it's always about going right, exactly. Yeah. Most definitely.
It actually has to be the priority as far as I'm concerned. The audience is the priority.
With all of my guests, we talk about current affair, and the first question I want to ask you is, tell us how Black Lives Matter means to you and how it influences your musical activities.
Yeah, well, most recently, we in our June program we dedicated it to Black Lives Matter, and it hits my heart. I was telling my students during that program that as a young high school student, which so many of my students are at this age, I was so confused by the situations going on. We had a foreign exchange student friend who I got to know, and he was going and doing a lot of lectures because he was in from South Africa, and apartheid was the big topic at the time. And I was just like, I told my mom, I'm like, how is this happening? I don't understand. I thought that, first of all, we had a civil war. I thought everybody in the world knew that slavery is wrong, that, everybody is equal. And I thought, with all that went on in the 60s, I was born in the early 60s, and, with Martin Luther King. And I remember in kindergarten seeing, they had the TV on when Robert Kennedy was shot. I'm just like, what is going on? Why? I thought this was all fixed. And it's so not fixed. And it's so upsetting. And I just, we've got to do better, and we can do better, and we have to do better. And so, the thing for me is with chamber music, it's always been an inclusive situation, all inclusive as far as I'm concerned. And early on, Leslie Burrs came and did a workshop, and what a phenomenal composer. And I was so happy to work with him. And, I didn't think of him as being a great Black composer. He was a great composer, and is a great composer. And another good friend of mine, Charles Washington, wrote some absolutely beautiful quartets that we perform called Midnight Child and Bartok Meets Monk. And I worked with him since grad school. And I think, what we really need to do is make sure that we are engaging these composers of color and making efforts. I mean, it's seemed unreal to me that it wasn't already being done by everyone. And I've learned, boy, it needs to be done more.
Well, and especially with people like artistic directors like us, we have the responsibility to accept and the courage to ask what we really are and how we are producing music to our community. And it's our role to amplify and make sure things are happening. It's not really a one-way road, that it's everyone is understanding the importance of this.
I think I was just very naive. I mean, I also conducted a women's orchestra for 10 years back when my kids were very young. So this would have been early, like mid 80s through, I don't know what it was, late. And so we were very aware of women and how much we really didn't play too many pieces by women either. And so there was a big mission to do that. And so I was doing that early on in my career, looking for repertoire and presenting repertoire that was varied. And I just feel even more strongly that we need to continue to do that. And there was Kyle actually was commissioned for MLK 50 to do a piece, and the orchestra here, this is such a beautiful piece called Echoes Ring, and it's I maybe let some of this play.
Tell us what's happening though.
So this is a side-by-side with alums and Hector Garcia, who is the pianist, is one of our board members. And Kyle had written this piece for piano quintet and string orchestra. And at one point there's a 10-part canon going on where like literally a page a measure per page is happening. But then in this piece, it comes to a point where Martin Luther King's speech is being played at the same time, and then which I think is probably what's going on right now. But
yeah,
it's a gorgeous piece, and I hope that people will look for it on YouTube. And there's also Kroger Arts just did a beautiful rendition of it as well. And Madison, we heard it played by a group out there during one of the protests. Yeah. So these are a lot of our alums and current students at the time. I'm not sure if you can hear the speech or not.
The speech is audible.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, moving work, and yeah, it just do echoes ring Kyle Price, and you can listen to that. It's very, I think it was very timely to hear.
Wonderful. The other current affair that I always talk about is COVID-19. And so performing music has become such a routine activity for us for so many years. And I think you can relate to this, but we've taken for granted that there was always an audience. Like of course, we always have to advertise about our events, and we have to put an effort into having an audience. But at the same time, you just kind of get into a routine where audience will always come, and no matter what, right? So then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, performing in public has become extremely difficult. So my question to you is, how has your attitude towards music and performing for an audience changed? And then if you could share a little bit about what CMC is doing in regards to this social distancing and using technology.
Well, one of the first things that I wanted to mention is that actually my last performance live, with an audience, was the Thursday that Ohio shut down. The very next Friday, they put the stay-at-home order in, and I knew strongly, leading up to that concert, I felt that it was going to be probably my last performance for a long time with an audience, in-person audience. And I was so happy that concert went well, and it was in work. And actually, my daughter was in the quartet. It was the 2D festival at Denison University where I teach, and it was with two of my colleagues, Cora and Hannah, the violin and cello professor. And that was, like I said, that was Thursday. Then I left for Coltman. I came back. When I came back, that was it. And I could feel that first week I was working with my students online, and when they would see, and I would see their face and they would see my face, we were just like, it was like the world wasn't as crazy as it was. Like all of a sudden we could see each other and feel connected again. And that Friday I started talking to my staff, and I was just like, we got to do something. Alix Raspe-Gray, who's one of our staff members, she's a phenomenal harpist. She was at Tanglewood, actually. I think she was at Tanglewood when you were there. And she teaches yoga as well. And I was like, look, I know we can do yoga, and let's see what else we can do. I feel strongly that we can teach chamber music. And we knew their Zoom was fairly, getting a lot of popularity very quickly. I mean, this is early. This is March, like mid-March. We're talking to each other. And or not even, it's like March 10th or something like that. So then I thought, okay, I know we've worked with a cappella before. I think this might work. And we just started brainstorming like crazy on what we could do. We knew that Google Meet and a few others had some limitations. We knew about BandLab, but I wanted the students to be able to see each other. And a cappella is an app that I've got to reach out to them, because I really want to see that we can make this even better. This is a group of 10-year-olds who just did the summer festival. They just performed last week, all doing a cappella.
Yay.
Isn't that
That's
amazing?
that's awesome.
I mean, this is where I want to reach out to acapella because the sound quality, they've done a lot with their apps, but the sound quality, it's a little bit rough.
You
And
know, but the thing is, yes, I totally agree with you, but there's two things that people can do when in times of crisis, and especially for musician. One is to do absolutely nothing, which a lot of people have done,
yeah,
and the other thing is to do absolutely everything, which is something that you and I are doing.
yeah,
And both are right and wrong, and I think because there are people dying and there people are suffering, and people it's a lot of mixed emotions, and people we actually don't know how to respond to all of this. But for those who are going in the direction of, okay, we need to produce a lot of content, which is me, which is you, it's the new normal, it's new technology. And I think technology it's in itself will catch up eventually.
right. And that's what
But yeah, and then we can't expect it to be in a blink of an eye that everything's going to be beautiful and everything's going to be
and that's sort of
sound great.
to where you were asking, like, how do I feel about the audiences now? I mean, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the audiences initially, some of my colleagues were
Yeah.
really, they were just like, look, doesn't sound good. It's not going to work out. There was sort of the same thing when I was starting the Chamber Music Connection to begin with. I was getting this, like, you have to have auditions. You're not going to be able to group the students well, all this sort of negativity. And I was like, no, I don't. And I've never done auditions for our program in all these years, except for the fellowship program, which is a different, that's like a graduate teaching assistantship program. It's a little different aspect of it. And, I, again, was just stubborn about it. I felt like, look, it's not perfect. And my students, we did 2 weeks with the fellowship students of these dry runs. And everybody's like, look, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's what we have. And it's
Right.
way better than nothing. And we're having fun together. And I'll tell you, they're learning a lot from each other to have to record like they do. Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
this is a piece by Ruman. Oh, now I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Oh no, that's not good. Anyway, it's the Parks Quartet. It's in honor of Rosa Parks, and this is Roumain. Is the composer's. But this is such a cool piece. Yeah.
And these are high school, middle school?
Yeah,
age?
actually, the two, the cellist and the violist are just finished freshman year. And the violinist on the right, Owen, is junior year, I think. And then the violinist is actually Lake Sand, is from San Diego. So here's one of these things where you have a student from San Diego and 3 from Ohio, and who thought these kids never had the opportunity to play together. And that's one of the great things that's come out of this whole virtual scene. We've had students from Hong Kong, and from this last program last week, we had Seattle, Chicago. We had teachers from Venezuela. We were literally across 2 continents and 4 time zones. And if somebody had told me back in '92, oh, by the way, someday you're going to have people on a screen, and they're going to be all over and playing together, and I was like, we didn't even have internet. We barely had a cordless phone.
Right, exactly. ISDN, LAN cable, dial-up.
Yeah,
right.
That was it. And here we are. Yeah, what a phenomenal experience. We had 8-year-olds in the program too last week. Just it's great to. There's Hina. Hi, Hina.
Well, it's just so wonderful. And then yes, the quality, but the reach is so much greater now.
Yeah.
And
I bring up the quality. I probably shouldn't even bring it up because I don't mind it. I mean, I mind it, but I don't mind it because I know the benefits are far outweighing.
Exactly. Like I don't care. I don't really care about the quality as long as people are making music and people are giving music, allowing music be the connection and the language to communicate to the rest of the world. And then now the audience is the rest of the world because it's on the internet.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that this is going to catapult the technology. And I'm like out there. We have so many alums who are, in the music world who are doing engineering and into computer world, and like somebody out there has got to be able to do something with the technology. And even a cappella, I got to give it a shout out. They have changed. They have brought in like different aspects of their app where you can adjust and like go to an acoustic sound or piano sound, or there's a lot more available to us. Unfortunately, it's really only working for Apple products. So there's some issues there that we need to work out as well, because that's challenging for those who don't have access to those products. And then we use BandLab, which has a higher quality. We just did a virtual side-by-side with the Houseman String Quartet out of San Diego. And that was used with BandLab, but it ends up being like my assistant and my daughter Stephanie ended up having to do a lot of editing because you have to line it all up. So it does. In a cappella, the students are in charge of it. The students are in charge of watching each other and playing with each other. So it's the closest thing I've found to actual in-person rehearsal.
Yes.
So I don't know of any other app that does that.
Yeah, I think acapella is definitely in the lead right now with making this happen. And it's just going to keep getting better because the demand is so high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure that our audience knows how to reach Chamber Music Connection. I have put a link in the chat. So please take a quick look, cmcconnection.org. And you can see some of the videos that we were watching earlier and links and descriptions to the programs. Also, I love all the Zoom photos that you have, especially
that one's like giving a virtual hug to my students there. Taking the screenshot.
Yeah,
what a great group.
So since 1992, Deborah, this program has gone through so much. 28 years. Where do you want to see the next 10 years to head with this program?
Well, I definitely want to get us back into in person, or
of course,
hybrid in the fall, but we'll see how that goes. But we're really involved in working with the iSTEM Connect, which iSTEM initially stood for Improvisation, Solfege Theory, Eurythmics, and Movement, and has since been brought in or involved into improvisation, small ensemble, entrepreneurship, and musician and movement. So it still has a movement in it. And the iSTEM Connect, we're hoping to turn into an iSTEM center, so that there'll be a center. My daughter Stephanie is she's really impassioned about getting this program to come together. And we were actually talking about starting an iSTEM center where students could come and really work on the foundation. And what happened from there was we turned it into iSTEM Connect and got the program rolling in May. We did April, May, and June, and then July we did our summer festival, which still involved a lot of the iSTEM with entrepreneurs. We had different guest artists coming in that were just wonderful people talking about what they were doing right now and what they did with careers. They're deciding their paths and things. So that was really wonderful. And the movement is always about cueing and dance and eurythmics and then also Feldenkrais and body mapping and Alexander technique are all being used. And our theory, we have eurythmics with the solfege and also written theory, form and analysis and all. And
I love that you have entrepreneurship, just because it's one of those things that schools don't teach well.
No, I mean, I certainly wasn't taught this stuff, and even chamber music pedagogy, that's one of our things that we're working towards next. It's like I mentioned, these pedagogy videos and writing a book. That's been on my plate for a long time, and I finally really have gotten going on it this past year. And because pedagogy is another thing, chamber music pedagogy doesn't really exist. It's barely it's infancy right now. And so that and the iSTEM just came together about 2008. I was always teaching solfege theory, and we're like, what are we going to call this? And one of my assistants at the time, Annalise Forner, who's now in a quartet in Rhode Island, she I think that we started chatting about it, and we're like, we're just going to name it STEM. And then we're like, no, we're going to put the I in front, and because everything internet, iSTEM. And then I found out that there's this thing called the STEM program.
Oh no.
Well, science, technology, engineering.
Of course.
I'm like, well, it's our foundation, so it's very similar, but different.
Excellent. Well, there's so much activities and so much innovative things that are coming out of CMC. So very exciting, and I love what you're doing. And thank you so much for changing the world and changing the lives of young musicians, because it's important. Whether they go into music or not, that's not necessarily the most important thing, but the fact that they are touched with music at a young age, so that when they become adults, they can look back and reflect on their time when they used to play chamber music. It helps. It helps make the world a better place.
We'll keep playing it. They can
Yeah,
play
exactly.
it. You don't have to major music. Yeah, thank you so much.
Exactly. Well, Deborah, thanks so much for your time to share us about a lot of things that you're doing. And then for those who are watching, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching tonight. Have a good evening. Enjoy. No more fireworks?
Nope, they're done.
All right.
Lights on the lake, and that's about it right now. So.
Gotcha. Well, stay safe, Deborah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。